All right, for our third project for Christmas cards, we're gonna try this scene. I'm going to change it a little bit. The light I'm gonna have coming from here instead of, it looked like here was shaded on their example. So I'd rather have the light coming in from here. And then the child, I'm gonna make generic. So it could be a boy, it could be a girl. If you want to be a girl, then just make the hat a little bit higher and have some hair flowing out. If you're good with a boy, then that's what we got here. Very simple figure. Don't even need to do their face. It could just be their cheek that's showing. So that's it. And then what we're going to do is do a little bit of masking. I'm just going to move my cord here because it's in my way. All right, so if the sunlight is coming from that way, then we would like some mask on this side of our snowman. Just a little bit, because when we do the background, we don't want it running in. Okay, and then we're gonna put some mask over on his hat. Normally I don't use these nibs because I find sometimes they come out in big blobs. But today I am, there is a big blob. I'll just spread that around. And then maybe I'm gonna get a brush because then I can pick that up. And then on this side of the snowman, we want it to be nice and white. So I'm just putting some mask in that area, as well as down here. And this will help be a border when we do the background so that it doesn't get all messed up. And same thing down here. Okay, that should do it. You could have a little glow on this if you want. And then a glow on her hat. I think that'd probably be good enough. Something like that. Maybe on the front of her arm. Okay, and let's pick up some of this because that's going to take forever to dry. Put a little bit more up here. Okay. All right, and then the only other thing, well, we can do that after. If you wanted a pattern on his scarf, but I think we're okay with that. And you could probably put a few lines through the snow that are going to stay nice and white. Okay, that's good enough. The colors that we're going to use for today are cerulean blue, maybe a bit of ultramarine, some burnt sienna, probably pyrrole red is going to go the best, and then you know, we can mix some other colors in the background here. We're also going to use some salt, and that's about it. So we're going to start with our background. We want it darker where the snowman is, and we want to have you know, to make this glow a bit darker around the child's head as well. So that is the plan. And I'm just going to put that on there. Now, it's debatable whether we want to wet the whole thing, wet the back. I think I'm going to wet the back because this background we want to be very soft. So I'm going to wet it. You don't have to wet it if you, but it does keep the paper wet longer and it gives you more working time. So that is the reason I am doing it. Okay. Now this is bao paper, and it's really good from the perspective of showing a lot of color, but also warping. It doesn't warp as much as some other papers. I find that's helpful, but you really have to make sure that you've got perfect coverage on it and kind of press the water into the paper. Okay, so that's good. And then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to use my clips to hold it down. Make sure you can see all of that. I think you can, but we've got quite a slant there. Let's move it like that. And okay. So that should do it. That's going to hold it down. And then we're going to also wet the background. This is where, and I'm not going to wet it as much close to this left side as of the child and the snowman, because I want to make sure that I can put some real dark on in that area. Okay, and whatever we use in the background here, we'll end up using in the front in the snow. So I would like some cerulean in the background. I think we need some ultramarine in the background. And because it's wet, all of this is going to, well, I should use a different brush for mixing. All of this is going to fade. You should have a fair amount of paint. Maybe a value 2 or 3, coffee consistency, well, probably 3 or 4, coffee consistency. Okay, and then, because I like purple, I'm going to have some purple in here in the background as well. Okay, and we could also throw a bit of cobalt in, I think. So maybe I'll mix some more cobalt over here. I've got lots of the dark from the prior painting, so we can liven that up. Oh, this was cobalt, right. Okay, so that's going to be our background. Now it looks like there's a woods behind it, and then some trees. So the trees we will use the purple, but first we're going to just do the light. The other thing you can do is just dot some water spots around here and there. Okay, and then let's start with our lightest, which I believe was the cerulean. And this is just going to be a background. So I'm just putting color in, some purple, just let it blend, some ultramarine closer to here, but I also want some cerulean in there. Okay. And I can go right across my masking. And maybe we have it kind of ending. I'm going to get a different brush here, so I'm going to be a bit more accurate here. So I don't have any masking on the front of the child. or the background stop somewhere around there. Okay, got some cobalt in here. We're going to be adding salt, so even though it might look a bit light right now, it's not going to be that light in the end. Okay. Okay, water, and then ultramarine here, cobalt. Oops, we said we would have the snow stop there. Okay, and over here you can actually have the background running right in to the snowman. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to worry about where the ground stops. We can figure that out as we go. Okay. I'm just going to go like this, let that run into it. Let this run into here. Continue on with this. Okay. We can have that division just by applying more water here and there. Okay. And then maybe some more purple up here. Now we're going to make things look like trees in the background. So we're going to take some of this darker color and let's put a tree right here, because that seems, actually you don't want trees sticking out of people's heads, so that's an important thing to remember. So we didn't carry that down very far. Okay, and then in the winter they're not going to be doing much up here. They're just pretty branches and so on. All very abstract. Okay, and make sure this doesn't look odd. Okay, and then in order for these to look more tree-like, we can add, actually I'm going to add a tiny bit of burnt sienna into this ultramarine as well, and have, you know, kind of a ground cover situation going on back here. Okay. Burnt sienna. Ooh, maybe a little bit too bright, but it's okay. We'll do that over here. Okay, so we did it. And now we're going to take some salt and make that background look. Oops, this salt is, try not to get it on the snowman or child. Okay, and that should do the trick. We'll see how that turns out. And then we're just going to make sure that this part here is not a hard edge. Same with this. Oh, and we have a bit of thing that we need to fill in there. Okay. All right, and then down below is mainly just the snow on the ground. So most of the things up here, we're going up. Everything down here is going to be going across. Okay. So we have some ultramarine that we want to put into this gray. We've got some of that there. Put some of this. Oh, that had green in it. Okay, so it had green in it. We need to add some pink. Oh, that'd be nice. Okay, and just go like this. You can leave some of those dry brush marks. They're nice. And maybe just have them more in the front. And then around the snowman, he's kind of sinking into the ground. It's quite dark where he is. And there would also be a shadow, a bit of a shadow. And she would have a bit of, or he would have a bit of his shadow as well. Okay, just make sure we do it nice and even. Okay, just wiping this part out. Okay, looks good. I like that little bit of pink in there, but we have no pink anywhere else, so we're gonna have to put pink somewhere. Maybe it'll be the pink of the winter sky up here. Okay, balance that out a little bit and maybe throw some pink down here. Like that. Okay, we did it. Okay, first coat done. All right, we're back. The salt that we applied in the background didn't really have much of an effect. And it could be for two reasons. The background is so light, the salt isn't really showing up, or the fact that I spritzed it after kind of dissolved most of the salt. So we're going to try another coat on the background. We're going to wet it, and then we're going to try another coat and see if we can get that snowy effect. I'm going to start by wetting everything down. Just working my way around. You'll notice there's quite a bit of blue close to the figures here. So I can probably extend some blue further up. I'm going to wet it one more time just to make sure that I've got enough water on there, but not too much. Mainly in the areas outside of where I already put that blue. Okay. And then I'm going to go a bit thicker this time with the blue. So I'm going to mix, let's get some water here. I'm going to mix the blue, ultramarine blue, a bit thicker. And I've got a fair amount of gray in here already from that black that I already had on my palette. Okay, and then I'm going to add a bit more imperial purple. Now these still aren't that dark, so I'm just going to keep going for a minute. Maybe better use my mixing brush instead. Oop, purple. Okay. Okay, that's getting better. Okay. And now back to the ultramarine. Let me just put a cloth over here so I can dab it. Okay, so that's pretty dark now, I think. If I look at those, they're not too bad. So now I want to just apply that to the background. And I'm going to test it in a few spots first. Okay, it's got a bit of purple in there, so that's showing up as well. And it's not really that wet back there, so I'm just going to help it a little bit by giving it some water. Okay, and then I'll put a tiny bit of pink in there too. I want it to look frosty back here, and I'm adding a bit of water as well. But we want some darker paint in this area. Maybe not so much in the sky, but definitely around the snowman, etc. Okay, I'm going to spray the top fairly aggressively. Okay, and then I'm going to put a bit more water on my brush as I go around the snowman. Just want it to kind of go down to here. It's okay if it runs in here. Okay, and same with the child's face. Just work its way down here and then add water. Add water over here. I can move this clip down a little bit. Okay, so now we're looking pretty good. And we're going to try the salt on this. Okay, maybe a bit more gray here and there. Just to get some more dark in there. Okay, so that is our sky. And then we're going to find where we put our salt. There we go. It's definitely salt. Okay, and we're going to try that again. Hopefully get some more texture out of it this time. I want it to look like there is snowy trees in the background. Okay, let's see how that works out. Okay, and there's a few areas over here that don't have any water, so I'm just going to put that in. And maybe down here a bit, over here a bit, and there. Okay, I can see where my salt is, and some of it does not have any water around it. I'm also going to try this rubbing alcohol. I don't know how it's going to react with the salt, but it definitely gives a unique effect. Someone was saying they haven't used their Potter's Pink much, and this is a good area where you could use Potter's Pink if you have it. Okay, too much color on there. That's kind of a dirty brush. Let me see if I can find a cleaner one. Just making sure his head is not kind of cut off there. Same with this. I want the effect to be everywhere. And I can see that the salt has not moved around much. So I'm just moving some of it around as well. And cover our child. And let's go again. Let's try to get some effects over here. I did not realize I was not recording when I painted the boy. Basically, he has a red jacket. I made it darker at the back here. And underneath here, back here, down here, and then underneath his hood. So, and then the skin color that I mixed was basically burnt sienna and a little bit of pink. And that did the skin color. I left a tiny, tiny gap there. And the black boots are probably not dark enough. I'm just going to make them a bit darker, especially the back of them. Okay. I have a little bit of light on this one kind of showing through. Okay, and he's kind of in the snow a little bit, so that's why it doesn't go all the way down. And you don't need to do anything else with this face. For the snowman, I think we'll start with the shading. It's easier that way. Then you don't mess up anything else. And as far as the color for the shading, let's have a look at the picture. In the picture, for one, they've got the shading on this side, and we're going to move it on to this side, but it's kind of a blue. Some of it's warm, some of it's cool. So we can do that. We can do a bit of burnt sienna and a bit of ultramarine to try and add some shading. What I'm doing here is I've got a lost edge, so it kind of fades into the background, which is also, you know, a nice effect in your paintings. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wet his body. Okay, and his head. Okay, and that's all going to have the shading. We can also go right up into his hat. So we'll use the colors that are on our palette. And basically, this we can do cool. Into the background, it's going to be cool all the way up here. We can put a bit of purple in there if we wanted to. Just soften out the edges of that. This kind of helps present the round shape as well. And I might just put a drop of pink here and there too. I don't know, I just think in this case it could use some pink. We had some pink up there. So just soften it out. And this is masking that you see here, so we don't have to worry about that for now. And then we're going to go in here and make this particularly dark. And again, we're going to soften it out. We can round it off there. This we're going to add a little bit of black across. So the lost edge can still be found if we smudge a bit of it out. Just a little bit. So you can still see the shape that he has. And then at the top, we'll do some here. This is going to be where his scarf is anyway, but we'll just throw some color in there. We'll put a little bit of pink in that scarf. Woo! A lot of pink. Let's pick that up. Dry off my brush. Grab that up. Okay. And then some more blue up here. Okay. Smudge that through. And he probably have some darker color under his hat as well. So just get rid of all the hard edges there. And then his hat, in the picture, I'm not sure what color it is, but we're going to do it a burnt sienna mixed with some blue and some black. So right under here, it's going to be very dark. I can extend it out a bit to the background. And then under here as well, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush as I do that part. Okay. Make sure I get burnt sienna, not orange here. Okay. That looks good. And then I can go up here and add the dark of his hat. It is bleeding quite a bit because we really wet this part. I'm just taking a little bit out. Okay. And then I'm going to add a bit of blue in there as well. So under here, it's going to be a lot darker. So ultramarine blue is going into that. The top of his hat is kind of lit up. And then over here I could put just a tiny bit of color, not much. Okay, so that'll help that pop out as well. Okay. Now, I think it's dry enough to take off this masking, at least at the bottom. Looks like I went over a tiny bit. Okay. That's going to be the other side of his scarf anyway. Once I get up here, I'm going to kind of let it peel off itself. Okay, so his hat might extend a bit further over, but much lighter. So I'm just going to take this a little bit further over, but have that brightness showing there. Okay, and this we can extend a bit around the back. It's a pretty good hat there. I might take a little bit of that out so that it looks more like a hat and might help. Let's see, I'm just going to do a little bit of scrubbing and lifting over there. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little bit of scrubbing where the mask, where the paint went too far in. So I want this part here to be a bit rounder. So I'm just scrubbing it off. Keep going. Okay, it's not bad. And then it has to be indented more there, but we're going to make it dark there anyway. So let's start with just a bit of blue here to make this indented. Okay. And then we're going to go fairly dry brush, thick paint. We're going to go across here. And let that run up and down. Okay, I can actually have it run down here a bit too. And then just take a clean brush and soften that out a bit. Okay. Might be a bit too hard around here. So just a clean brush, softening it out again. I guess it wasn't wet in that part. Okay, not bad. All right, and we need to do the same thing at the bottom where he hits the ground. Make sure there's no masking. We can even put a bit of snow going across here, something like that. Okay, and then have it go up. Okay, so we've got him solidly in the ground here. Okay, there, looking better. Okay, so I think he needs a bit more gray extended over here. Okay. Needs a bit more ultramarine in this spot here. Okay. Okay, and then a bit more ultramarine behind here. Okay. I think we did it. So, what kind of scarf do we want him to have? Should he have a pink scarf? I think he should. At least a pattern scarf. Okay. So I'm just making a pattern with whatever colors I think of. Okay, maybe one more color in there. That's not exactly another color. Let's try to find something else. Let's try purple. Okay, there we go. Whoops. Let's get that spot off of there. Okay. So now I just want to put a little bit of an outline on this here. And here, and then here. Okay, and then we need a bit of shading under his scarf. Okay, and maybe a bit over here as well. Okay, all right, a bit more blue down here, blend that in. Okay, rinse. Okay, it's looking pretty good there. Here he's not dark enough, so again I'm going to just go in with some more color. Let's go in with water first though. Okay, a bit more blue. Okay. more pink. Okay, and then we can go across like this with that. Okay, I think that's fine. And then if you want, you can put some warmth on his belly. I'm just gonna put a bit of warmth here and there. And we're going across there. Okay, maybe we have a scarf because we don't have that end here. This scarf going up a little bit on this side and over on this side. That way it looks like it's really wrapping around his neck. Okay. All right. So you need some personality. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. For his eyes, I would leave a little white spot, kind of like that. Okay. All right, now this eye looks better than that eye, but that's okay. And then we need his nose, which is a carrot. So it's going to be bright at the top, maybe some gamboge even. Okay. And then more orange at the bottom. Okay, and put a bit more yellow in that. Whoops, I don't want that much yellow. Woo. Okay, I just want a tiny bit right there. Okay, I think we did it. And then he needs a smile. I can't even see where my marks were anymore. That's okay. And then maybe he has red buttons. Red and pink. Okay, so there, whoops, there. Some of these are going to be wet still, so you have to make sure they're not wet. Whoops, and I kind of messed up. Okay. Okay, not bad. Okay, now we need some sticks.